It feels like action movies have died off. Sure, we'll get some cheap, obscure movie, but none of them have the same oomph that some of them did from back in the day. Terminator, Predator, Mission Impossible, Die Hard. These were all wildly popular and spawned a multitude of sequels with varying quality, but they've pretty much gone away with nothing to replace them. Predator has attempted a comeback, but only seeing small success, if any at all. Terminator hasn't had a good movie in forever. They tried to make it into an anime, and I heard it was actually decent, but I've heard nothing about a season 2 or anything about the show since episode 1 came out. Die Hard stopped making movies a long time ago, and Mission Impossible tried to make a big two-parter, but underperformed massively at the box office. And all the Mission Impossible movies were actually good, and they still didn't make enough in the end. The black sheep in this group is obviously John Wick. We're 5 movies into the franchise with no sign of stopping. Ballerina was a critical success even if it underperformed. John Wick 5 is in the works, as well as a prequel that everyone has been begging for, along with a Kane spin-off. But in March of 2021, a small-budget action movie managed to make significant waves. And that film was Nobody, a film about a retired hitman who's struggling with his life after work and finds himself drawn back in by an unfortunate coincidence. I've heard many people sing this movie's praises over the last 4 years, so with the release of Nobody 2, I watched it, and it was a solid action movie. This film is quick, with solid action, and a likable protagonist, with a familiar but different enough premise to stand out. So naturally, after making over 3 times its budget at the box office, and extremely good word of mouth, we've got a sequel, and I'm sad to say it was pretty underwhelming. Do not get me wrong, this is still a quality action film, but it is a notable step down from the first Nobody. This film follows Hutch as he is working day after day to pay off his massive debt he built up after his antics in the first film. This, however, puts a strain on his family, so they decide to take a vacation to Plummerville. But when they get to this small town, Hutch gets in trouble with the police, which leads to him discovering that this is a massive middle ground for a massive crime boss to launder her money and transport other valuable goods. Hutch decides to cause trouble, which causes her to come down, and Hutch and the head of the town team up to take her out. After a big action set piece, Hutch gets arrested and is immediately set free, and he and his wife go to plan another vacation. Now, for the first half of this film, I was actually thinking it was doing a lot better than the original. Something I didn't like in the first movie was how quickly Hutch folded when it came to getting into a fight. The first third of the movie is all about him avoiding a fight. He gets robbed, and his son is assaulted, nothing. He breaks into a house and steals his stuff back, nothing. Drunk Russians get onto a bus after a car crash, he beats them to a bloody pulp. Now, there was a little more nuance to the scene. It was implied that he was in fear for a young woman's safety, but he just did it as an excuse to fight. The film could have easily added in a bit where the Russians made a move on her before he intervened to justify his actions, since the movie goes out of its way to do that in the later half anyway. But in this film, Hutch's son and daughter are both being bullied, and when an adult steps in and smacks Hutch's daughter, he gets his family out and then loses his shit. This then leads to trouble with the cops, where he gets attacked, and then when he tries to make peace and sees they're kidnapping a kid, he fully gets invested. This film shows him multiple times trying to avoid conflict, but then shows the other people push their luck and pay for it, which worked better for me. But once Hutch decides to get involved with the head honcho, this is where the movie falls apart. In the first movie, the head of the Russian mob did things that made sense. It was personal for him. It was his brother that Hutch beat the fuck out of, and then Hutch went to him and revealed that he completely burned all of his money. And that's why the head of the Russian mob chased Hutch to Hutch's warehouse. But the lady in this movie just decides to go after Hutch herself because Hutch burned her money. And the final action sequence was a lot weaker than the original. They really didn't take advantage of being at a water park for a big action scene. The first film may have been basic, but they were in simpler locations. And I know this movie could have done better because the arcade fight was incredible. But the most clever thing they did was spike the bottom of a water slide. And then Hutch calling his brother made sense, but making him a ninja was pretty corny. The first film went out of its way to be as realistic as it could afford to be, and that was part of its charm. But jumping from this hyper-realistic fighting to cutting through a gun and a guy's head with a sword in one stroke, while cool, just feels so out of place. Like I said, this isn't a bad movie. And it's certainly not a bad action movie, but it didn't live up to my expectations by the end. I do still hope that we get a Nobody 3. They absolutely can. They're able to make these movies on an incredibly small budget and do a lot of cool things still. Just keep it to the realistic side, though. If you made it to the end of the video, you are now obligated to like and subscribe, as it was said in the fine print when you clicked on the video. Also, comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on Nobody 2. If you disagree with me, obviously you're wrong, but I still want to hear your thoughts. Thank you all so much for watching, and take care.